Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm on my quest for England. And what could be more English than making your own bread? That's what I'm going to be doing today. And I know, of course, across the world, people have been making bread since, I don't know what, 8,000 years ago, something like that. I think bread making started in the Middle East. It's certainly been a tradition here in England since the Neolithics were discovering that they could mash up some form of wheat and add it with yeast and create bread, and that's what I'm going to do. And the thing is, in this lockdown, as I'm recording this, we're sort of slowly getting, I think, and I'm hoping that this is the end of the lockdown from the COVID-19 in 2020. I say that because people may watch this video in years hence and think, what's he on about? I think that a lot of people are turning to different crafts and skills, and one of the things that I've always wanted to be able to do, and I've seen that lots of people are doing this now, is baking bread. And I think making bread for yourself has got to be the most primeval skill that we should all know how to do. It's too easy just to go to the supermarket and pick a loaf off the shelf. Far better to have a go. Now, here is my attempt, my most recent attempt. Half of it's gone already because it's so delicious. This is attempt number 6, actually, and it's the first loaf that actually resembles a loaf of bread. And I am so proud of myself. I know that sounds silly and stupid, but I really am. And so the lovely Julia, who, as you know, is often in my videos, although hasn't been for a long time because of the lockdown, she was very impressed that I had managed to make a loaf of bread. I said to her, I will make you a loaf. So that's what I'm going to do today. And so this is much more about how I like to do things. This may not be the correct way. It may come out a complete muddle, and I'm sorry, Julia, if what you get is a complete mess. But I'm going to have another go. So what you need to make some bread, there's plenty of videos out there which will demonstrate this far, far better. So this is more about my philosophy and the approach I'm having about making bread and how I'm going to bake it. We'll see that in a moment. So just to run quickly by the basic ingredients so that if you're thinking about it, you might think, oh, actually, I could do this. I think the most important lesson that I have learned is that you need strong white flour or bread flour. That ordinary plain flour or self-raising flour is not the right stuff. You've got to use this strong white flour because apparently that's got the best glutens in it, which really help the bread rise. And so that's very important. We're also going to need yeast. That's the other second very important ingredient. The first 2 attempts I made with my bread, nothing happened. It didn't rise. And it was because the yeast I was using was out of date and had died. So make sure it's fresh yeast. This one is dried yeast, but it's working. And another tip, keep it in the fridge once you've opened it. Seems to give the thing a lot of life. We need a bowl, obviously, to mix everything up. We're going to need some salt. We're going to need some warm water. And ultimately, once it's all together, we're going to need a tin to put it in. And I've got a little bit of baking paper in there to help me so I don't have to keep greasing the tin. So that's really all the ingredients and bits and pieces that you need. You have to leave the bread to prove, and it then rises, and then we stick it in the oven. So I'm just going to now very quickly knock this lot together, and we'll take it to the next step. So what I've done is, so far I've put in 500 grams of flour into the bowl. I've then followed that up with the yeast, which I've got 7 grams written down for the quantity for this, and that goes into the bowl. Sugar is next, just a teaspoon of caster sugar sprinkled in, and then of course some salt. Now I've got 1.5 teaspoons. Now I know there are official measurements for all this, so I'm kind of using a spoon here to get a vague idea of what 1.5 is, which is something like, well, probably something like that. Again, that goes and sprinkles in. Then we've got to mix the whole thing together. And it just mix, all these are all the dry ingredients, and we just mix them well and truly all the way in, so that's the most important thing. Now, of course, one thing I should have mentioned is it's worth pulling up your sleeves at this point, because the next bit gets gloopy and mucky. So the next bit is, I've got 300 millimeters of warm water. It's the warm water that activates the yeast, and then the yeast starts to make the bread rise, because we have to do what I have learnt is called prove the dough. We've got to make the dough. So the next part is very gloopy, and I'm going to get my hands all covered in the yuck. So here we go. Just going to pour this in, and as I pour it in, I'm going to keep one hand going. Now, I am a novice. I'm not a master of this. I do not know if there are better ways of doing this, and I'm sure there are, and there will be professionals possibly, or people who make this all the time watching me and thinking, oh Richard, you're doing this completely wrong. As I say, this is number 7 of my loaves. So however, the number 6 has been my first successful one, and I'm just going to see if I can repeat the process. So this is nearly done. Get all of this pretty much in. I'm just gauging how sticky it is in case I have enough or not too much of the water, and it's slowly going in. Well, actually that is a lot. And now the other hand comes in, and we make it much more into a dough, and away we go. So the next part is to now, once you've got it all mixed up, is to start to knead it. Now, I don't know how you knead it professionally, but from what I gather is you just continually turn it in like this and place it on itself. It should be sticky, not tacky, or is it the other way around? Tacky but not sticky. Anyway, whichever way, as you see, it's not really sticking to my hands now, and I'm just kneading this into a nice dough, and just keep this going. And the point of this is that it's starting to activate the yeast, and I think it's getting rid of all the air bubbles, which you don't want at this stage. And we just keep kneading this, but for 15 minutes it takes. Eventually the bread is ready once you've kneaded it, and what I gather is you make it into a nice round ball. This is what I did before, like this. And what it's got to do, it's got to prove, which means the yeast has got to do its work, and it's going to expand, and it's going to do this twice. So it's going to expand, and then you knead it again, you knock it back as they call it, you knead it a bit more, and then you again let it stand, and then eventually you get to put it in the tin. I've lost the tin now, here it is. It sits in the tin, and then when it's ready, it goes into the oven, and then it bakes for about 20 minutes, I think, or and then a little bit longer on a slightly reduced heat. So that's really the process. This is, you know, not necessarily a complete demonstration of how to make bread, as I say, but I'm going to put it into this dish, but I'm advised to lightly oil it. So a little bit of oil goes in there. Tiny little bit of oil, just so it doesn't stick, I suppose. So I'm just going to mix that round, and once that's done, that sits in here quite nicely, like so. Put a tea towel over it and keep it in a warm place. Now, it's a bit of a colder day today. I haven't got an airing cupboard, so I'm going to light my Essie, and that's going to keep it warm. It's sometime later. Yes, I've been busy. So the last time we left you, we put the dough to prove, and actually the sun came out, so I thought the best thing to do was to put it on the windowsill in my front room. So I put it on there for 2 hours, and what started as a small thing in the bowl, over 2 hours it began to rise, and it was quite a monster. Actually, I was quite surprised. So that was great. Then what you have to do is you knock it back. So then you bring it back and you pummel it again, or rather you knead it, but only for a couple of minutes. It's just really to knock out the air. And then you do exactly the same, cover it with a tea towel, put it back into a warm place and leave it for a further hour, which I did. And then it came back again, rose up to similar sort of size. You knock it back one more time and then you put it into the tin, which is what I've done. I then went and lit the essie, and the essie is about an hour ago actually, so it gets the kitchen nice and warm, but also of course it gets the oven nice and warm, which is the essential thing. And then over this next hour the bread is starting to rise for the last time, and it's sitting here looking very nice. So here we go. It's beautifully risen, and I've just scored it along the top, actually not brilliantly, but I'm hoping that won't matter. Inside the oven I've also put just a small amount of water in a dish just to make a bit of steam in the oven. I'm told that that will just soften it so it doesn't go too crusty. So I haven't done that before on this successful attempt, but we're going to bung it in now for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to have to reduce the temperature in the oven because it's quite hot. So in it goes like that, but actually before it goes any further I'm going to take that top tray out because that is going to crush it. It's now time to take it out of the oven, and what I've done is I've taken it out when I thought it was pretty much done. I've turned it upside down so that I could just guarantee that the bottom was cooked as well. And for me to reduce the heat in the oven, I actually have to open the door a little fraction and let some of the heat out, because you can't just turn it down. Obviously you can stop putting fuel in, but it does take a bit of time. So I've put it back the right way round just for a last little blast. It's so difficult to know if it's actually cooked. I won't know till Julia tells me. So let's get it out. And there it is in the oven. It's looking absolutely amazing, and I almost don't want to go and give it to her now. It's so nice. I want it for myself. But here it is. This is it, and it looks and smells delicious. Well, I must shut that because that's so hot. So now what I'm going to do is put it up there. I'm going to take it out the tin and just rest it above the top, give it a moment to cool down. I shall then whiz it over to Julia's. Obviously with the COVID distance I'll just leave it outside and she can take it. So thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe, all the usual stuff. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye bye.